Welcome to the IAM Power Hour, where personal growth meets empowerment.
I'm Terry, and we're here to inspire, challenge, and help you transform your mindset.
And I'm Stacie. Today, we're going to talk about news, noise, and navigating the truth, plus everything in between.
So let's get started and ignite the power in you.
Welcome to the IAM Power Hour, and today we are going to be talking about news, noise, and navigating the truth. But before we get into that, Terry, how you been?
I've been doing really, really well. We've had a lot going on, busy around these parts as usual. And, Stacie, this is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I've got a lot of bookings where I train on stress and anxiety and depression and growing into your best self, whether it's growth mindset or being mindful or understanding even how to manage your stress. How about you?
Me? Let's see. How am I managing my stress these days? Gardening, a lot of gardening. But, I talk about my garden, and I know I probably talk about it way too much. However, I learned about this really cool planting technique, right? It's based on Native American planting, and it's called the Three Sisters. And it incorporates corn, a type of pole bean, and like a squash. Me, I love pumpkins, so I planted pumpkins with it. But the whole concept of it is that you plant them together in one space. So as the corn grows, the beans that are planted next to it then wrap with the corn and grow as well. So they basically grow together. And then next to that, you plant pumpkins or type of squash, something that can kind of grow and cover the ground that then the sun can't penetrate down so weeds don't grow. And each item gives nutrients to each other. So they're very beneficial to each other and helps the soil. So I'm very excited about it. And oh, look, here's a picture. This is how it's starting. Wow. Yeah, so I'm very, very excited about it. And I can't wait to see how it grows. So I'll have to keep you updated on that because this is a new technique that I really researched and I'm very, very excited about too.
Well, I'm excited to see how this works out because you're killing more than two birds with one stone.
So I figured out a way to kill two birds with one stone. Like this.
If you do have any gardening tips for me, because I am a big gardener, make sure you email them to me at the iampowerhour@gmail.com. But the other interesting thing, I was walking through the grocery store, and did you hear? I know this is like way weird to even talk about. Brad Pitt was abducted by aliens.
Well, I wonder what his kids are thinking about that.
You read it all the time, right? They don't like him, so maybe they're like, yay, Dad's gone. But I gotta say that I saw it when I was standing there reading the news headlines, while I was waiting to check out. So it has to be true.
There's so much going on, and we read so many things and we're such a hurry all the time. And so we take that stuff and, it must be true. It's out in print. It's on social media. It's on Google. It's wherever the case may be. And we don't.
Are you telling me it's fake news? What? Have I been duped? Are you telling me it's fake news?
My grandfather, who was older, obviously, he and my grandmother would get, and she ran a beauty shop. So, all the chitter chatter that goes on in a beauty shop. And back in those days, in the 60s and the 70s and everything, but there was those magazines that you could get with those covers and would say stuff like that. My grandfather would read that and he would say, did you know that Brad Pitt was abducted by aliens? And I was a child at the time, but even I knew. But he would have a big grin on his face, and he would know that this stuff was fake. But there might be a little touch or hint of truth to be able to even have some kind of article like that, there may be something in there that might have a little hint of something to be able to even do that kind of an article. I don't know. But for the most part, many of it was fake. And I see you over there shaking that head, but this stuff now
Stated
has
purposes.
gotten way out of control. Anytime you open up your phone or get on social media, any platform, you name it, it's all there. And so we want to talk about the fact that this episode is about owning your power, getting your power back. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you dealing with? And are you being able to cut through the noise, maybe spot the truth, and reclaim your peace of mind? So when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at do begin to change. And so, Stacie, let's get real. We all have these headlines. We all see these things that maybe send us into a tizzy in anger just by reading the headlines, or the fear or the outrage that may be going on. And why is this happening? Because misinformation isn't just about deception. You know, it's to manipulate you on your emotional level. And we've had these conversations before of what can you control? Your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your emotions. But it's manipulating that, and it's playing on your fears, it's playing on your frustrations, it's playing on your fatigue, and there's just so much going on. But misinformation isn't new. I mean, this has gone on for centuries. When I was a child, it was landlines, and even back then they had what was called a party line. But they had those party lines, and so you pick up the phone and you can listen in on anybody's conversation.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of news traveled, right? Little
And that's
Miss
how those travel.
Mrs. Kravitz would pick up that party line and hear a snip of a conversation, and boy, it spread like wildfire.
Absolutely, it does. And we haven't changed a bit, except it's just gotten more, readily available, more easily. And so even Miss Kravitz, she might be saying something that truly was not true, and she only heard a snippet of the conversation, and she was like, "Oh, I can't wait to tell everybody else." And so, with that being said, this is going on, but now we all have access to it every time we open up our phone or our computer or whatever the case may be. So having that emotional impact, and with this even being Mental Health Awareness Month, actually increases your stress. And so with all of this fake news and noise and everything else that's going on around us, what are some things that we can begin to do to start spotting some of this?
Well, I think one of the most important ways to spot something is it coming from a credible source? And
Yeah.
I'm going to tread lightly on this one, that you may think it's even coming from a credible source, but if you're watching something and you're noticing like a lot of jerks or like slashes, more than likely that video that you're watching has been edited down to make sure it's saying what that person wants it to say. So a lot of that, even though it may be coming from a credible source, could be manipulated, right? And things are being taken out of context.
Right. And being able to do that, are we don't have time to be the fact checkers. Are we just reading this stuff and maybe even seeing something that's all in caps come across our page, and maybe there's a link to that, and so the whole big caps might be the government is hiding the truth, and so do we just take that snippet and keep going, and our emotions keep going here, going there, getting angry or frustrated, and nobody even read the actual article?
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that we may not have checked whether it was credible news source or done any kind of fact checking. We have just this got us upset, and so we spread it. And then this begins to go even more and more viral as we go through this. You may even see such things as misspellings of words.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that a lot of times when you see something misspelled in a headline, whether it's coming across a news feed or however you get your information, when things are put out, right, it goes through, let's say, a bot, and it's checking for certain things and ways to get around, maybe being thrown, to spam or not showing up in your news feed is certain words. They're called spam words, and they'll misspell them, so they'll get through. So they're not picked up in this algorithm, so they'll get through and right into your file feed.
But if some of this is manipulating us, or we're allowing it to, because they're using that type of language to manipulate our emotions and to make us want to, it thrives on fear and anger. Those are the two emotions that actually shut down any type of rational thinking that we might have. And everyone on here, everyone that's ever, that ever sees this show, has had a point in their time, in their life, that they've been extremely, extremely angry. We've all been there somewhere along the line, maybe some of us more than others. But when we hit that extreme anger, we don't think rationally. We say things that we may not mean. We may do things. We're triggered. And so if we are not thinking rationally when we are in that phase of anger, then if something like this comes across and it's based to emotionally trigger us into that frustration or that anger, and so we shut our rational thinking and boom, we share it. Boom, we tell other people. And we are angry, so we want everyone else around us to get angry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, I think anger can spread like wildfire. I mean, just like a lie, right? I mean, it can take off, and before you know it, it's a lie can become truth, just because so many people are saying that's what's happening. And that's where a lot of people get kind of tripped up on, is that they don't take the time to really find out if it's, is it happening right now? Did it happen 3 years ago? Things are taken out of context.
Exactly. I mean, even some of this stuff may even be what they call recycled outrage.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've heard about that, but basically what that is, recycled, means that they've come back up with some old stories or old photographs or old whatever that they're utilizing that may be 5-10 years ago, and they're using those images and then they're sharing it with maybe a different headline or a new headline and saying this is happening right now.
It's funny that you say that, because I was just on my social media earlier today, and for some odd reason, I don't know why it gets into my feed, but I always get a sad news. I think today was Kate Winslet, right? Love Kate, dies.
I've been seeing stuff like that too.
Right? Click in the comments below and read the full article. That is a prime example of what we're just talking about, right? I mean, did it really happen? So, of course, the first thing I do, because I love Kate, I go on to Google and I Google it. And of course, oh no, she's happy living in England, right? Shooting a new movie. So I'm like, boy, that's just weird what people put out there to get people to click.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And now, we've talked about in previous shows about these tariffs and things like that that's going on. And so there's a lot of fear maybe of shortages, or there's going to be shortages. And so people are pulling things up maybe from the pandemic, when the grocery store shelves were all empty, and and people couldn't get certain products that they really, really needed. And so some of this is starting to happen now. And
Yeah.
so what does this do? It induces panic buying. And so
Yeah.
people are going out, oh, well, I better get this now. And because they're in a panic. And so again, we're being played on those emotional fears, if you will.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of in that panic buying now because if you watch commercials these days, they're feeding on that. Get it before the tariffs hit. Everybody's overstocked right now. Get it before the tariffs hit. So that's really creating that kind of panic buying. It's like everybody said, oh, yeah, I need to get it before. You know what? I'll be back. I got to get it before the tariffs hit. Right?
And I've thought about some of that too, even myself. And it's like, well, maybe I do need to pick up a little extra of this or a little extra of that. And so what's that doing with me? Well, I'm spending more money than I probably normally would have spent. And maybe I'll be happy for it in the future if something happens. But again, with job layoffs and things like that and everything that's going on, this is turning into a big major viral cycle.
Yep. And advertisers do a great job at that.
Yes. Yes, they do. Yes, they absolutely do. And so with all of that, understanding that, am I being manipulated? Taking back your power and your control. And as we, part of the show is own your power. And when we're reading through this stuff, is it beginning to amplify our emotions? Because if you're in charge of your emotions, or are you allowing social media and all of these things to control your emotions, or are you in control of your emotions? Are you taking the time to stop and say, ooh, this is upset me, just this trigger of this headline, so to speak? Are you taking the time to research it before you allow your emotions to get out of control? Or are you spreading it like wildfire in extreme anger and stress and fear, that 80% perception, somebody else's opinion versus what is really true in our reality? Or are we able to flip that on its head and take control of our emotions and turn that acronym of false evidence appearing real into face everything and rise? Taking the time to research, taking the time to find out, is this true or is this not? And don't allow somebody else's opinion or their manipulation to control you and what you do with that information.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think taking the time to really find out is if what you're seeing is true, and then kind of check in with yourself, right? If you're noticing yourself getting upset or angry, right? Maybe at that point you put it away, you turn it off, you take a few deep breaths, and you just kind of recenter yourself and make sure that you're not getting angry.
Right. There's an old statement back in the mental health days: when in doubt, breathe it out.
I like that
good
one.
cleansing deep breath in, and then let that stuff go.
Which I'm doing right now. I don't know if you see my hand kind of doing a funky little dance over here. That's my dog trying to get my attention. So I got to breathe that out and make sure
Breathe that out.
I'm going to get me all upset.
But we want to make sure that we're in control and we're not allowing other people or fake news, fake media, fear-based content to navigate our world, because this is taking us down a very, very bad path. But I feel as though many of us have got caught up into this fear-mongering, this fear-based thinking, and because somebody that we may feel that we admire said it, it must be true. And that's not always the case, because no one knows everything.
That's true. And that's where and that's where it goes back to make sure that whatever you're watching isn't cut up, isn't being taken out of context just because you think you may trust this person, right? Know, like, and trust, that it's not being taken out of context, because that can get just anybody in trouble, right? And it's happening more and more, especially when it comes to like, other social media platforms that have that snippet and they're just shrinking down, maybe a 15-minute conversation into 15 seconds. And we got to be careful.
And so, Stacie, I want to take this a little bit of a step further, and let's talk about, now that we understand maybe how this is affecting us and what are some things that we can look for, whether it's, these headlines and looking for credible sources or dates or misspellings, but beginning to research and teach the truth, and understand what may be completely true for me may not be true for someone else. But whether that's the case or not, do we have to continue to divide and be so mean and angry to someone else who may have a different opinion? And this is now spread into the workplace. It's in our homes. What are we role modeling for our children? What kind of a team member are we, or a supervisor, and what are we role modeling in our place of business? So are we being able to manage what is best for us, maintaining those higher level energies in whatever fashion that takes, but not going down into those low level, angry, fear-based energies? And so we have to be the ones to role model that, whether it's in our personal relationships or even in our professional career and relationships. So let's talk a little bit about, if we've got kids or teenagers or whatever the case may be, what are we doing, or what can we do, Stacie, to help move that through and be a better parent, a role model for our kids?
Well, I think it can stem from, I'm a big believer in knowing that, you are what you eat and you are what you speak.
I like
right?
that. I like
So, being able to speak honestly, especially with your kids. And I
Right.
think that's one key factor as a parent is to be able to sit down and speak with your children truthfully without having to hide things or beat around the bush, but really being able to instill in them that honesty is the best policy.
Well, and I think too, going back to the kids for just a moment, what are your morals? What are your values? What are you teaching? And are you trying to live in that world of anger where everybody should believe exactly the way you should and your child is going to do the same? Or are we teaching, the golden rule? Well, gosh, remember that? I think that's something we got, do unto others as you would have them do unto you kind of mentality, and being kind and respectful to one another and role modeling that and teaching that, and accountability to your children. These are all things that we can begin to do, and respect and empathy and communication and listening to one another. And not only do we do that at home, but also helping our kids to make sure that before we just see something and take it at faith, take it to heart, let's do a little research. If it's something that we question, let's do a little research. Back in my day, we didn't have a computer at our fingertips, and all through college, we had to trot right on down to the library, and research things, and that took time. Today, you have a world of information at your fingertips, but are you just taking a few moments and trying to research something somewhere else to make sure that it is true? And even telling your kids, I don't know, but let's find out together, is not a bad statement to make. Not only have you been real to your child, but you're going to LMT, learn something new, and maybe and help your child to learn something new. And over and above all that, you've spent some quality time together.
True.
That's amazing.
It is. I mean, and that's a true fact. I mean, I know with my own daughter and her being 19, and she'll come to me and ask me questions, and I'll look at her and say, I don't know, but let's find out. Exactly. Because I want to know too. So We'll sit there and we'll both look into it. And I understand that people, we're busy. Life is busy, right? You have work, you have chores, you got to run the kids here, and you have to run the kids there. Are we talking about researching every single thing you see? No, of course not. I mean, you would spend probably more time on your computer than your kids do on a video game, right? So it's just really identifying those key ones that I think really bother people or can really be important when it comes to, you know, again, kind of the state of our nation, right? What's going on with that? Those are things I think would be most important. That if you see something that comes across and you're just like, huh?
Yeah.
Look it up. Try and find some more information on it and make sure it's credible.
But stop the share of things that maybe we don't know is absolutely true. If we would stop doing that, that would slow a lot of this down. Let's take some time before we get angry and share that out, whether and don't even know whether it's true, but it manipulated our emotions. So you have lost control when you allowed yourself to do that. And even in the workplace, Stacie, now extends outside those four walls of what you call your business office place. And especially even now with social media, because workplace extends into social media when we become friends with our colleagues and this and that and the other. But are we even sharing stories or maybe even company emails in meetings or things like that that may not have been fact checked? Are we just jumping to conclusions and doing that even with our peers and our colleagues in the workplace? Because this can create a lot of divisiveness in amongst teams, number one. And number two, it lowers the morale for the people in the workplace and promotes disrespect. And so in the workplace, we want to keep that respectful, professional, kind, and understand that that too now extends outside those four walls. Maybe we're working hybrid or maybe we're working from home, but when we go to business meetings or whatever the case may be, or even out to business lunches, that's outside those four walls. And so are we maintaining that sense of respect and kindness and being professional with one another?
Very true. I mean, that's even, talking about being more stable, breathing it out, being rooted in like yourself and in the harmony within yourself with emotional intelligence and how you're feeling, I think, is very important. Just like kind of like we talked about last week about being rooted within our chakras, right? We talked about that last week with the affirmation of I am being a very strong affirmation for people. It helps you to root, it helps you to get grounded. And we're going to build on that today, which I'm very excited about, because we are going to talk about now the second chakra, which is the sacral. It is just above the root chakra, but just below your navel. So if you push into your belly button and go right below it, that's where the sacral is located. And what's really cool about it is that it's associated with a lot about what we were talking about today: creativity, pleasure, and emotional balance, right? So being balanced in your emotions is key to a lot of your daily activity, because it governs our relationships, it governs our overall self-well-being. And when we're balanced, it helps to foster joy, passion, and stability, not only in your emotions, but in relationships too, whether it's, with a loved one or a friend. And to balance these energies, it's not very hard. I know a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I have to do all this stuff. No, to balance your second chakra is simple. Be creative and active. And being creative could be something just by dancing. If you like to paint, garden, something like that. Or if you're into yoga, that's a way to be active too, or going for a walk. just anything that kind of gets you moving and kind of doing some creative things, because it releases those really good hormones in your body that help kind of balance that out in you. And while you're doing these activities, as we're moving from I am, as we're moving up, the next affirmation is I feel. And I feel, right? We're really getting into how we're feeling and what we're doing. And in order to kind of get into that mindset, you could say things like, I feel creative. I feel joyful. I feel emotionally balanced. And all these types of affirmations can definitely help reinforce those feelings. Because I know, Terry, a lot of times you and I discuss this, that I am very powerful because it kind of creates and roots you into what you want to do. And now I feel is that next step up of I feel this way. So if you say that I am abundant, this next step is I feel abundant. You need to connect those two. And so basically you could say them back to back, right? I am creative. I feel creative. And the crystal is the tiger's eye. It's one of my favorites. I love it. They're beautiful. They can come in gold. They can come clear, or it can also be a stone. So if you can't find it in crystal form, you can find it in a stone too. And it's very, very powerful. And the stone is known for grounding, energy, and the ability to balance your lower chakras as well. So you could stick it in your pocket, throw it in your wallet, and it really helps to bring harmony to our emotions and creativity. And it also promotes strength and confidence as well. So it's an excellent tool if you need help focusing, if you're into visualizations, to hold while you're saying these affirmations as well. So like Terry said, the challenge this week, I feel affirmations to be added on to the I am affirmations. And we would love to hear how it's working out for you guys.
I love that. I absolutely love it. And then we're going to move on into the next show with the third chakra, and we're going to keep that on the down low for the moment. But as we continue to build on this, and Stacie, I think you're doing a fabulous job by, bringing some of this in, because we're going to be talking soon about energy as well. And everything is energy and everything's composed of energy. So I hope that we've been able to provide you some great information on news, noise, and navigating the truth. So we're going to wrap this up on the I Am Power Hour, but I'll tell you, Stacie, we've got a lot of noise. We have a lot of news, and we sure need to learn to navigate that truth. What do you think?
That is 100% true. So we're hoping you're walking away with some inspiration and maybe even a new perspective.
We would love to hear from you, and you can email us at the iampowerhour@gmail.com. So until next time, keep shining, stay curious, and as always,
own your power.
Own your power. I love it, love it, love it. Thank you, Stacie, and we'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
You have been watching the I Am Power Hour with Terry J. Walker and Stacie Staton. You can email the show at iampowerhour@gmail.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Thanks for watching.